All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're doing chapter 3.2, right? We're doing linear functions and models. This was a warm-up from yesterday from chapter 3.1. So number one thing we got to be able to do is graph lines, right? These two sections are all about lines. Number one, we got to graph a line, whether it's y equals mx plus b, or in this case, f of x equals mx plus b. We should be able to pick out the slope and the y-intercept, okay? So what do we got for slope and y-intercept, y'all? Slope, what'd you guys get for slope? 2/3. And the y-intercept? -6. So, reminder, you put your pencil on the B. It's not hard, you see, man. We're having fun now. It's time for rise over run. We go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's my B. So from B, now we do our slope. We go up 2 to the right. 1, 2, 3. You can keep going that over and over and over. 2 points determine a line. So that's perfect. So 2 points determine a line. I've got my slope as 2/3. My y-intercept is -6. Average rate of change is the same thing as what? Slope. And if my slope or average rate of change is positive, then we will always have what type of line? Increasing, decreasing, or constant? Yeah, increase. You guys are great. Okay. If it's negative slope, we got decreasing. And then if it's just a horizontal line with zero slope, that's a constant. Okay. So that's a pretty easy question you would see on a quiz or test. So now when we're looking, that was 3.1. When we're looking at 3.2, linear functions and models. Okay, number one thing we should be able to do is draw and interpret a scatter diagram, and then also distinguish between linear and nonlinear relations. So first thing is a scatter diagram is what we see right here. Okay, basically scatter diagram is coordinate points, x comma y's, graphed on a coordinate system. We should be able to look at this scatter diagram, this data, and identify if it looks like a line or not, right? So I take a look, which one is linear? A is linear. So if I look at this, I can definitely tell that this data looks like it's linear. Okay, so that one is linear. What about the other ones? Yeah, these are all nonlinear. So these guys here are all nonlinear. Okay, this one looks like a quadratic or parabola. Okay, this one is a quadratic for short. This one is a little curvy, kind of like an S curve, kind of like x cubed. This is what we would say a cubic. And then the last one, it's kind of linear, kind of not. It looks like a banana almost, or I call it J curve because this is exponential. Okay. Don't need to know that this is quadratic, cubic, and regression. You just should be able to identify if it looks like a line or not. Okay. Clearly this one is, and these three are not. Okay. So if you can do that, that's basically goal number 2. Okay. Last but not least, and this is where we got to grab our T83s or 84. So again, get those things out. We're doing goal number 3, using a graphing utility to find the line of best fit. Okay. So let's get that started. So this is where you want to grab your TI-83 or 84. I'm just going to walk us through step by step these rules. Okay. Now, one thing you should know, if you have a TI-83 or 84, but it's not here, we'll look to see if you have an Android phone. You should know if you have Android or not. I have a Samsung, S2 here. And I take a look, and it says the app that I've got, if I can zoom in here, says Wabbit Emu. I got the Disney World app, the PGA Tour. Okay, it says Wabbit Emu. Okay, it's like you're saying rabbit, or you're Elmer Fudd, you wascally wabbit. So if you have a TI-83 or 84 in your phone with the Wabbit Emu app. Emu means emulator. And then Wabbit, I have no idea why they chose Wabbit. Okay.
Can I just do that right now?
Yeah, if you have your Samsung, yep. There's
on iPhone too.
Now, if you have an iPhone, I believe there is something for you to download. I'm just not a hipster like Tom is. Okay, there is an app, but I think you might have to pay for it. Do you have an app, Jake?
It's just called Calculate 84.
Calculate 84 is what I'm hearing.
It's literally just like.
It looks just like that.
Yeah,
So check out Calculate 84. Okay, see if you can download that guy. I'm not cool enough to have one of those. So, all right. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this, and what we're doing is we're graphing this data. We're going to put this on a x and y coordinate system. Once we have that, then we're going to fit a line to our data. This is called the line of best fit or a trend line. So that's what we're doing today. And then we'll talk about why are we doing this. Okay, so first let's get through it, and then we start talking about the why. Okay, so number one, I'm going to press window, and I'm going to adjust the value so your data will fit into your screen. Okay, here's my data. I've got x's, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 5. And y is 11, 6, 3, 2, -1, -6. Okay? So I'm going to do what it says. Number one, I'm going to press window. So window's up here. And then I'm going to change my value so all this fits in. So the lowest value, the x min I have is -2. You could type in -2, but I'm going to type in a little bit past -2 so that the whole dot fills my screen. Okay? So you could do -2 or -3 or -4. I recommend going a little bit past. I'm going to go -5. Okay. The highest number for the x's is 5. So I'm going to go all the way up for x max. I'm going to go 10. Okay. So I got my x max at 10. Then I go down to y min. My y min goes from 11 to -6. So I'm going to go past -6. I'm going to go -10. So for my y min, I'm going to make it -10, just past -6. And the highest value is 11, so I'm going to go past that. I'm going to go to 15. Okay? So I have -5 to 10. I've got -10 to 15. So far, so good. Any issues there? All right, next, I'm going to go to stat. I'm going to go to edit. Okay, stat is, if you look at your directional pads, just to the left of it. So there's stat. I'm going to go to edit. So I'm going to edit this. So number one. And I need to see that I have a list 1 and a list 2. So an L1 and an L2. Okay, so double check that you guys have an L1 and L2. If you don't, this is where you would say, Mr. Gotsch, I don't have that. Anybody having issues with that? Anybody not have an L1 or L2? Let me answer this question real quick on email. Somebody's trying to get in. Give me 1 second here, guys. I got an email trying to get into the classroom here. All right. Does anybody not have an, so people in Zoom world, yeah? People out here in real life, everybody has an L1 and an L2. This is when you say, Mr. Gotch, I don't have one of those. All right, let's plug them in. So enter each values. You got to press enter after each value entered. So my list 1 are my x's. So I'm going to do -2, enter, -1, enter, 0, enter, 1, enter, 2, enter, 5, enter. Okay, now the Lord has blessed me with fat fingers. So I always double check before I move on that I did everything correctly and I did okay. Okay, I blame my father for these sausages I got. Okay, So I plug in the next one. Again, this is the corner point -2, 11, so I got to make sure it matches up that -2 and 11 are next to each other. So 11, 6, 3, 2, -1, and -6. Okay? Again, always double check, because if I made like a little mistake, if I said that was 6 and not -6, the whole thing's going to be off a little bit. Okay? So double check. 11, 6, 3, 2, -1. Oh, darn it. I forgot the negative. Okay? Other common mistake is you guys type them in and you think you're done, but look at these dash lines. They're not matched up. They should be even with each other, okay, to make sure you have all of your dimensions correct. So that should be lined up perfect. Okay, are we good with that, y'all? All right. So I'm moving to step 3. Was that working or no?
Yeah, it's working.
All right. So Calc 84. Calculate 84. Jake says it worked perfect. All right, so number 3, we're going to press second y equals and get the stat plot. Okay, so second y equals. And when we want the stat plot, I'm going to choose number 1, plot 1. Be sure that it is on. So I'm going to turn it on. Okay, so I want the left one highlighted. Okay, what type? We want the far left one highlighted. We don't want the line graph, the bar graph, the box and whisker plots. We don't want that. Okay, you want the far left. List 1 and list 2 for X and Y lists. And then whatever mark you want. For me, I have, bad eyes, so I want the biggest mark. My favorite color is blue. Maybe yours is pink. You could use pink. Or maybe you have a TI-83 and you don't have a choice. You just got black and white. Okay? All right, so I did that. Okay? Now I'm going to press graph. And you should see the scatter points. So I'm going to press graph, and we should see this. Oh, I got an equation in here. Nope, we got another equation in there. Let me clear that up. So clear that up. Notice my plots are now on. They're highlighted. This is another way you can turn your plots on and off. You can go to y equals and go up to plot 1, press enter, turns them off or turn them on. Anyways, press graph. Do not press zoom 6, because zoom 6 will change your window back to -1010. We don't want that. We want the window that we specifically made for this data. Okay, so press graph. Do not press zoom 6. Is anybody not getting this graph? All right, so that's my little signal to cut that out, and then they'll save us 5 minutes. All right, so I like to put a little graph on here. So if this was a quiz or test, I usually have you graph this by hand, rough sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but this definitely looks like a line, doesn't it? Looks like it's a decreasing line, right, going down. So now what we're going to do is find a line that fits this data really good. Okay, so this is a line. Is this a line that fits the data real good? Does this fit it? No. Does that fit it? No. It'd be like this, right? So we're going to find this line, and basically what your calculator is going to do, it's going to find the averages of every slope that it can calculate and find the average of that slope. And then it's going to find the average of the y-intercept of every single line that try to fit that data. So that's what your graphing calculator is doing right now. Okay, so it's going to go to number 4. I'm going to press stat. Stat's right here. I'm going to toggle over to calc. And we want number 4. Always, always, always number 4. Not number 8. Not number 9. Number 4. We want linear regression. Okay. And they're going to give you 2 values. They're going to give you an A value for slope, and they're going to give you a B value for the y-intercept. Okay? So we go down to number 4, or press 4, and we get this little program here. If you have a TI-83 or 84, it always jumps right to A and B for us. Okay? So if you have an 83, you're just going to have to hold your horses. Okay? If you have a TI-84 and you did stat, calc, number 4, you should see list 1 and list 2. Skip over frequency list, and I want you to go to store reg EQ. Okay? We want to store the equation we come up with into y1. Okay, so that eventually it'll just graph it for us. Okay, how do we do that? Great question, Mr. Gotsch. Vars. Do you guys see vars? So next to clear is vars. Vars is for variables. Okay. We're going to toggle on over to y vars. So press vars, go to y vars. Number 1 is function, and there's y1. We're going to store y1. I'm going to do that again. Vars, y vars, function, and there's y1. That's one way to do it. Okay, another way. This is how I do it. Alpha, this is like a shortcut. Alpha y equals. Okay, this is how you do the fraction with these fancy TI-84s. Toggle on over to y vars, and there it is, number 1. So I'll send, this is just another way to do it. Okay, this is how I do it. Alpha y equals. Toggle on over to y vars, and you get y1. Okay, now I'm going to calculate. So you TI-83 people, this is the screen you see. At least it should be. We should get, if it says to round to 2 decimal places, we've got negative 2.29x, and then plus 4.41. So 0.5 rounds up to 1. Okay, so that's a rounded line of best fit. Okay. Well, now it says in step 5, go to y equals and enter this line of best fit. Okay. Now, if you have a TI-84, it's already stored in there. That's what we did when we did store reg EQ. Okay. When we stored that thing. If you have a TI-83, this is blank. Right? So this is where I'm talking to 83 people or 84 people that don't have the updated operating system. So this is where I need to go to vars. Vars is next to clear. So vars, right there. This is a stat program. So I go to number 5, statistics. I go over to EQ, and it's number 1, reg EQ. So EQ is the equation. This is the regression equation, and it copies and pastes that whole thing. Now, I don't want you to type this in, negative 2.29x. I don't want this because this is not very accurate. We want to be as accurate as possible. Okay, so don't type it in like that. It's going to be wrong. And then you're going to wonder why everything in my math lab is wrong. So don't do that. So again, if you have a TI-83, vars, go down to statistics, EQ, reg EQ, and it's already cut and paste for you. Okay? So I graph it. Here's my line of best fit. Look at this guy. Okay, here we go. So I got a line of best fit, looks like this. That fits my data perfectly. Okay, this is basically the average of the slopes that you could create with all these points. The average y-intercepts for every single line that you could think of. Okay, that goes through those points. And there we go. Okay. You guys have questions with that? Yes.
My X list is not L1, it's just like some random letters. Now how to switch it back to L1.
Your L.
So it's supposed to be L1. It's just like U's.
Okay, so delete those. Clear that. Okay, and then do second one. Second one. Make sure that works. Does anybody else having issues, y'all? Anybody else having issues? So stat, calc, number 4, press 9. Okay, yeah, and now you gotta go to y equals. Okay, press vars. Go down to statistics, equation, and then number 1, reg EQ. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, and then graph it, and you should graph. Okay?
All right, thanks.
So guys, I'm going to move down. So again, this is a line of best fit. This is also known as a trend line. Okay? Why would we want to know this line of best fit? Why would you care about this in the real world? What do you care about this? Why this is going to be super nice, super important? Ron?
To see if there's a trend.
Yes, see if there's a trend, right? You guys are math magicians, right? You can see the future mathematically. Do, right? If I want to know, hey, what's going to happen with this data? If this follows this trend, what's going to happen after 7 days? Right? So I go second trace, value, 7. If x is 7, what do I get? I get 11.6. What happens after 8 days? I bet it goes down, right? It's going down to negative 13.85. What happens after 9 days? I bet it's going down, right? My trend line's going down. I'm at negative 16.17. What happens after 10? Negative 18, right? What happens after 11? Error message. Why the heck did I get an error message? I could do 10, but I can't do 11. Why? Huh? That's my border. That's my max, right? So if I look at my window, go to, I can do 10, but I can't do 10.1. I get an error. Why? Go to your window. It maxes out at 10. So you can't punch any numbers after 10 or to the left of negative 5. So if you want to plug in 11 or 12 or 13, you got to make sure this window is big enough. You know, if I go up to 20 and now I regraph it, second trace value, I can plug in 11 now. I can plug in 12. I can plug in 20. Can I plug in 21? Can't do it. I'd have to go back and change my window max again. Okay? So be very careful of what window you choose so that you can punch in these numbers. Okay? Good stuff? All right, so we did all that. Number 6, to clear out old data. Okay? I go to stat. Okay? Edit. I arrow up to L1 and L2. And I press clear. I press clear. Clear is right next to bars, right next to the directional pad. So I press clear, enter, and it clears it all out for me. Okay? Don't go up to L2 and press delete. Don't do this because it literally deletes the whole thing. And now I no longer have an L2, and now I've got to reset. Okay, so how do I do that? I press second plus is my memory, and I go down to reset. So second plus, reset, all RAM, reset, and that resets everything. So now stat, edit, my list 1 and list 2 are back. Okay? So don't delete it, just clear it. Okay, maybe make note, do not delete list 1 or list 2, or you got to go second plus and reset your RAM. Okay? All right, so trend line. Let's do last one before we get out of here. All right, so line of best fit, it says the following data represents the width in yards and length for tornadoes in miles. Okay? They also might say, hey, this is independent and this is the dependent. So you got to know, hey, this is X, this is Y. So be very careful of that when you're reading through the problems tonight. Okay? So this is my list 1, this is my list 2. So let's go ahead and clear those out real quick. Again, I got 2 hundo. Enter, and then just type them all in. 350, 180, and so on. And then list 2, plug them in. Like 8.0, you just have to punch in 8. You don't need 8.0. 0.5 is just 0.5. You don't need anything special. It'll do it for you. Now, before I move on to the next step, I always like double checking, and this will help you guys get caught up. And I recommend you guys double check. These are again according to points, so 400 has to match up with 4.5 and so on. So you make sure you didn't type this in. I did it pretty fast. Hopefully you're catching up. And I don't see any mistakes. Okay? So I got my data in. Now I want my window to be big enough. If I was to graph this right now, I got nothing. Okay? So I got to make sure my window is big enough. My x's go as low as 50, so I'm going to go as low as 0. That way I see the x and y axis. And this thing goes all the way up to 800, so I'm going to go up to 1,000. Okay? My y min goes as low as 0.5, so I'm going to go 0. And then my y max goes all the way up to 8 or 9, so I'm going to make sure it goes up to 10. So I got 0 to 1,000, I got 0 to 10. I'm going to go to my y equals and make sure that's cleared out. I'm going to make sure my plots are on, and I'm going to graph this thing. Okay, this is just a rough sketch. Okay, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left, so we'll make sure we get through something like that. Roughly looks pretty linear, right? Overall looks like a line. Use your graphing utility to find the line of best fit that models this relation between width and length of the tornadoes, and express the model using function notation. So again, how do I do that? I go stat, I go to calc, number 4. List 1, list 2, store reg EQ for me, I'm going to go alpha trace y1. So you can go alpha y equals or alpha trace y1, and I'm going to calculate that. And there we go. So what you guys got? I got 0.01x plus 0.74. Okay, function notation. F of x equals, or L of w equals, something like that. 0.01 w for width plus 0.74. Are you guys getting that values or no? Yep. You guys good? Interpret the slope. So I want to talk about this one before we go. If I have a slope of 0.01, think of that as a fraction. Think of this as the change in x over the change, the change in y over the change in x. In our case, this is the change in length of the tornado over the change in its width. Okay? So this tells me for every yard, so for 1 yard of its width, the length grows by 0.01 miles. So again, 0.01 over 1 is the change in y over the change in x. That's the change in length over the change in width. So as that width is 1 yard, the length grows by 0.01. Okay? Remember, it's input, then output. Predict the length of a tornado when the width, or the x value, is 450. They want to know what the y value is, question mark. Okay? Or in our case, the length. So if I have this thing graphed, I got my line of best fit graphed with it. This allows me to predict second trace value 450. And if that width is 450 yards, then my miles of the length of this tornado is 5.3. And that's in miles. So all I did was second trace value, plug in your x value. Okay? All right, before we leave, how many yards would the tornado's width be? So what's x, question mark, when the length, the y, equals 7? This is an example where you can't do second trace value because they gave you the y value. This is where we go to y equals. We go to y2 and we plug in that 7. Okay? So you got y1 is your line of linear regression line. Y2 would be your y value that they're asking about. So we graph that. Okay? And now we can predict what the x value will be. Does that make sense? Because we can find out where these two lines intersect. We can go second trace, number 5, intersection. First curve enter, second curve enter, gas, press enter. When the y value is 7, then my width, my x value, is 612.5, and that's in yards. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is chapter 3-2. Okay, if you guys have questions on this, I can always take it tomorrow. You guys are Zooming tomorrow. You guys that are live, it's the Blue Crew tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Stay out of trouble. Adios. See you guys.